Oh, well, there you go. We have another week down. For the most part, pretty nice weather. We got a little bit of rain that scooted through this morning for some people. I'm talking metro. I know all the parts of the state got hit with some more rain. Some things kind of seem to miss us here in the Twin Cities, which is okay. I'd take a little bit more rain than we've seen this week, but count your blessings. If the forecast is right, tomorrow is going to be wet. Looks like Wednesday is going to be wet. Looks like this next week we're going to see some very inconsistent weather. We're going to go from a lot of rain to possibly 100 degrees, they're saying, on Tuesday, to some more rain on Wednesday, and then warm again on Thursday, Friday. You get the drill. It's that time of year. It's in Minnesota. If you're not used to that by now, you haven't lived here long. That's just kind of what we deal with. So this past week, we fished in a variety of different patterns. We are all over the place. We did some fishing up on Cass Lake, which I'll touch on just briefly because I know some people have asked me some questions about that trip because they're planning vacations and some other things, so I can definitely lend a hand. I'm definitely no expert up there, but I can tell you kind of what we found, what I think these fish would be doing, and so on and so forth. But around here, we've targeted everything from smallmouth to largemouth to a few walleyes to panfish to bluegills, crappies. We caught everything this week, pike, and it's been a riot. And I'll show you some ways we're catching those fish. But for starters, our water temps are starting to teeter into the 70-degree mark. We're finding some days by the end of the day that we're seeing low 70-degree surface temperature. So things are progressing and moving along just like they should. In my opinion, that's about where we should be right now for the second week of June. Finding those peak periods of the day teetering into 71, 72, 73-degree water temperature. Majority of the largemouth bass are now post-spawn. There's still some smallmouth bass kind of teetering around. Most of the crappies are done spawning. We caught a few last weekend, still up in the pencil reeds, but I'd say probably 80% of your crappies are done. Bluegills are probably half done. You're still seeing some bluegills on beds, that sort of stuff. But again, a lot of beds you're seeing are vacant. They've already moved in, moved out. So everything's progressing nicely. I would anticipate that in the next week, we're not dealing with much of anything on a spawning nature. Bed-focused fish will, for the most part, be done here in the next week, especially with this really warm up we're going to see here this week. So the Blackfish gear is going to get a big workout this week. Stay protected, stay hydrated. Just a quick, simple health tip: bring lots of water, bring the appropriate clothing to wick the moisture from your body to stay cool. That's vitally important. You want to be on the water, you want to be on the water for a period of time, and you want to be healthy. Just because you don't always feel like you need to drink something, you need to drink something. I'm telling you, that's my only parenty style comment for this video is stay hydrated, stay protected, stay comfortable, stay healthy. So with that, we're going to not just touch on everything we've talked about. Some of the situations and conditions and presentations are still working. Wacky rigs, chatterbaits, all that kind of stuff, still catching fish, still working. Those things catch fish all summer long. However, we've changed things up just a hair. We'll touch on our bass fishing stuff, and then we'll touch on what we found on Cass Lake, and then teeter into a little bit of crappie and walleye. I had clients this week fishing swim jigs. I had them running a spinning rod. I prefer a bait caster myself when throwing a swim jig, but again, it comes down to experience, what you're comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with throwing a swim jig on a spinning rod. This is what I've had my clients fish. This is 20-pound braid. You got a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. They got a nice medium action spinning rod, 2500 or 3000 series Shimano reel, and that all-terrain swim jig. That's the all-terrain chartreuse and white 5/16 ounce. I put a little paddle tail on the back, and this thing flat out catches fish. You can see how nice that thing looks. That's just a pretty looking bait right there. Nice thing about the 5/16 is it doesn't fall as fast as your heavier baits. You're probably saying, well, that's obvious, Matt. But yeah, it falls a little slower. You can fish it more effectively in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of water. It does have a nice weed guard on it, like a lot of your jig baits out there. And then I can also have clients retrieve it back slowly. They can work it right through the weeds, kind of dance it through like a bluegill or a crappie or some kind of larger minnow. Or you can hop it, or you can let it fall into a pocket. It skips exceptionally well. So if you want to get a little crafty on us and try to skip it under docks and that kind of stuff, under trees, you can do that. So that's the swim jig. That caught us a lot of fish this week. Largemouth, smallmouth, pike. That giant crappie you saw John catch, one of my clients, an almost 15-inch crappie he caught actually on this exact rod, this exact setup. This is what he caught that big crappie on. So try a swim jig. They come in a variety of colors. They do come in different sizes. and it's just an easy bait to fish. It's probably the first jig style lure I'll put into somebody's hands if they're just getting into jig fishing, is going to be that swim jig. Next, we talked about wacky rigs and that kind of stuff, soft plastic stick baits, the Cometa. We've been fishing this Texas rig a little more lately, and I'm just fishing this, like you can see, burying that hook point just like that, so it's weedless. So instead of in the middle like a wacky rig, I've been casting this out there. It skips really well. It doesn't get snagged up as easy. It gives my clients a little more versatility to catch fish. I'm not pegging this with anything. Again, this is a slow fall approach, but we've been fishing it this way a lot this past week, catching a bunch of fish, especially with the cottonwood and other things and other variables playing and wreaking havoc along the surface. Even some of the emergent weeds that are starting to pop up. We seem to be snagging less, seem to be pulling more weeds back, or less weeds back when we're fishing this approach. Just a lot easier for my clients to fish with, including myself. So I'll fish this presentation as well. So this is just a Texas rig, no weight, Mr. Twister Cometa. This happens to be that chameleon candy. I can't tell what color you're seeing. I'm seeing kind of a purple. It changes colors, kind of like that cool chameleon paint. Really effective color on a lot of these fish. And I'm just fishing this setup with a spinning rod, medium action, 7-footer. We got a 2500 series Shimano on there. I'm again putting that 20-pound braid to fluorocarbon leader setup on this for these guys and gals, and away they go chasing down fish. So those are two approaches that are a little different than we talked about last week that we're using to catch some of our fish. I caught a bunch of fish on that red bug Ned ringer. That's a new one. We've talked about this before. This is just a Ned rig, new classic from Mr. Twister. I caught a bunch of fish on the red bug, kind of a cool color, a little different. A lot of anglers down south rely on that color. Playing with a little bit more up here, trying to give these fish something different that they haven't seen before. And we've caught a bunch of fish on that red bug Ned ringer as well. So that's kind of where the bass and what the bass are doing. Going to be hitting the water hard this week. We'll see what happens as we move into the true post-spawn period, what these fish are doing, where they're moving. I think we're going to be fishing a little more deeper weed lines with this warmer weather coming. And but we'll report back in a week on what we find here over the next week or so. In terms of walleye fishing, we just walleye fished up on Cass, and we caught a bunch of fish on the weed lines in like, I'd say 8 to 14, 15 feet of water. Fishing a shiner minnow. We did get some fish to bite plastics, but just kind of slowly working a shiner minnow at about a mile an hour, working them, hopping them back and forth, pitching that stuff. I've been sitting up front, staring at my active target and actually looking for fish. However, it's not necessary. You can just work those same areas to kind of stay where the weeds aren't as thick, where if you cast too far in, you might get snagged up. And if you cast out here, there's nothing. I think you kind of get that idea. And that's kind of where these fish have been moving around. Shiner minnow, leech, chunker crawler. If you can find a pod of fish staying in one spot, I'd encourage you to work a cork, a float, a slip bobber. Seems to put that bait right in the strike zone a little easier for you. But it seems like a lot of these fish are just kind of roaming that weed line, just kind of moving around. They're bunching up. Usually when you see one, you see more than one. And that's kind of how we caught our walleyes up there. It was a super fun bite. We caught a handful, a lot of pike mixed in, just kind of a fishy type area. So if you're going to be adventuring up in that neck of the woods, I'd say that's a pretty solid bite here for the next couple weeks before they move into the deeper, flats, reefs, summery type stuff. Right now they're kind of on that immediate weed line, and that seems to be where most of these fish are being caught. We did chase some crappies up there as well. They are spawning up in that neck of the woods still. We're down here, like I said, they're starting to really fizzle out. Not many crappies left spawning, but when you get further north by like Cass Lake, a lot of crappies are spawning. I'd anticipate they would. You may have a little bit left here this week, but they're going to slide off. Bluegills will be spawning though as well. So we targeted a lot of fish in the pencil reeds, whether they're emergent, meaning you can see them, or whether they're submergent where you can't see them unless you're on top of them. You can see the stems. Those are kind of the areas you're catching a lot of your panfish right now, whether it's crappies or bluegills. And we're just targeting them with bobbers, drop TG, 1/32 ounce drop TG tungsten jig, and your favorite plastic. Some people are also tipping them with a crappie minnow, waxworm, leech, whatever it might be, whatever fits your fancy. All that stuff tends to work. You just got to get to where the fish are. I think if you're at where the fish are, they're going to bite all of the above. So find the fish, keep fan casting until you get bit, and it's a lot of fun. So it's been a fun week. We're in sun shirts and shorts. It's awesome. It's mid-June. It is indeed June 12th already. It's crazy, and we're going to come back to you Father's Day. Possibly, we'll see. Maybe next week it'll be a delayed report because I may be hanging out with the kiddos on Father's Day, getting beat up and all that fun stuff. So a week from now is already Father's Day. It's crazy. We're getting after it. It's open water season here in the Twin Cities. Have a whole lot of fun. Try some of this stuff out. Hopefully it catches some fish for you. If it doesn't, sorry. Otherwise, write to me, send me messages if there's things that's working for you. If you're catching fish on certain things, I love to hear it, and I will absolutely try to adopt it into my arsenal of attack as well and see if it works for me. So have a great week. Catch some fish. Be safe. Stay hydrated. It's going to be hot. Stay healthy on the water. Have a good time.